We're required to sit up here so that the microphones and the cameras will capture every word.
You have a quorum, so you can start, or you can choose to wait a few minutes.
Let's wait a couple minutes. Okay, the appropriate pieces of paper. I suppose we should start because the meeting was announced for 7:30. So I'll call the meeting to order.
Can you please speak in the microphone, please?
So the meeting is called to order. Our first item of business is the approval of the action minutes. Any comment on the minutes?
Do we want to do the roll? Mark?
It's up to you.
Here we are, if you
Yeah.
want. I think it's pretty clear we're here. Here we are.
Okay.
So, any comments on the minutes?
I had one comment. How does Margie spell her last name?
Marks, M-A-R-S.
Oh, did I put an X?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Z.
Z.
Sorry.
It's K-S, right?
Yeah, it's KS. I don't know how I got that. KS.
There was another figure in government some time ago with that
I
same
just
last
wanted to
name.
point out she did spell my name correctly, which is very difficult to do.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Do people want to do one L instead of two?
There's about 10 different
I'm
spellings.
sure, yeah.
Any other comments on the minutes? If not, I need a motion.
I'll motion that we approve the minutes.
Okay,
I
second.
second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed, none, abstentions, none. Okay. Public comment. Persons desiring to address the commission or the commission on any item that is not on the agenda. It's a 3-minute limit. Hi, Tara. We just did the minutes, so you haven't missed anything.
Or just
Okay.
one more on the other side.
Okay. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and we can't take or discuss items that are not on the agenda. So, any public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to announcements from committee members. Anyone?
I do have some announcements.
Okay.
I attended the meeting of a new organization that pertains, in a broader sense, regionally to some of our issues. It was an organization that's new. It's called Tech Equity Collaborative, and it's a collaborative between technology people like myself and political leaders surrounding the topics of how the tech economy is affecting your average Joe. So that was nice. And Libby Schaff, the mayor of Oakland, was there, and David Chu. So it's an exciting thing that I got involved in. Another thing is I'll be absent from the next meeting. I'm part of a Chinese dance group, Alan Dance. We'll be performing on the 11th of June at Albany High. And unfortunately, we'll be rehearsing on Tuesday nights, so I'm anticipating missing the next. I'll send a formal email and everything, but I won't be here. So
Okay. Anyone else?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Staff announcements.
Yes, I just wanted to bring your attention to a few events that we have for Asian Heritage Month, which is May. And we're organizing 3 major events, which are the first one on May 13th, which is cultural Thailand through music and dances. So throughout the month, we're highlighting different Asian cultures. And so this one is a presentation of classical and dramatic dances. And then we are also organizing a Japanese tea ceremony on Wednesday, May 17th. And the last one is Chinese medicine and exercise on May 22nd. So you have the 3 flyers for the event. And also we have a brochure that highlights all of the events that are sponsored by the city and the Albany Library. And most of the funding for these events are provided by Berkeley Mental Health. So it's a collaboration with Berkeley Mental Health to promote Asian Heritage Month.
That's very nice.
Yes, very, thank you.
Great. Well
Who
done.
put this together?
Myself and staff members, Zion and Barbara White from Berkeley Mental Health, and Paul from the library.
Good job.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, and along those lines, I just remembered that Saturday, the 13th, is also the citywide yard sale, which is an opportunity to get to know your neighbors and buy cool stuff.
May 7th, we have the Arts and Greens Festival, too. Events.
Good. It's good that actually these announcements get out on video, so that's good. We are a means of communication. All right, then moving on to, we have no presentation, so moving on to unfinished business. First up is the work plan, which I presented to council last night. You all have a copy of the work plan, and council accepted the work plan. There were a couple of, Mr. Moss suggested that one thing he would like us to think about is how we might monitor state legislation that has relevance for Albany. So we should put that item on an agenda in the future. To talk about that and how we might be able to play a role in that. And then in the public comment section, there were a couple of comments raised about the involvement of members of this commission in some of the public meetings, and some of the statements were made. There was concern that some of those might constitute a violation of the Brown Act, and the council asked the city attorney to look into that, so you may hear from him at some point if he has questions. Anything? Okay. That's it in terms of the work plan. At some point, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate point, Isabel, but I would like us to go through, maybe at the end of the meeting, to go through the work plan and make sure that we've agendized everything that's on it.
Oh, sure.
So let's do that at the end.
Yeah.
Okay?
As part of future agenda.
Right.
Items, okay.
Okay. So, any other questions about that? Okay, then on the,
Well, actually, I did have
okay.
other comments on it, sorry. Okay. There's the objective 1.2, promote housing availability. I'm not sure how detailed we're supposed to get in these, but a couple of things, and I think this would also fall under objective 2.1. It has to do with outreach to homeless, and we were going to get some kind of a report on the number of homeless people in Albany and/or Alameda County, and then also some resource material was going to be developed, which is like a little short summary that we could hand out to homeless people as we may encounter them. or could possibly be handed out at the Resource Center. Do you recall, we had a speaker from,
Yes,
yeah.
from
Oh,
BFHB.
okay.
Yeah.
So do we want to get into that much detail? Or?
We don't need to, and this has now been accepted, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the future meetings,
Agendized.
we'll agendize that.
Those items, yeah.
So we can, okay.
It's actually on the Berkeley Food and Housing Project is an item. Project
Yes.
Albany Project Hope, so if you want to
Oh, okay.
suggest anything during
okay.
that item.
All right.
Okay, and then, so moving on to the Community Resource Center. I don't know if you had any contact with the one prospective candidate.
I did, and I'm hoping to finalize an offer that she will accept tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So,
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, so since the offer hasn't been accepted, it would be inappropriate to say much more about her, except that I've seen her resume, and she's a very appropriate candidate.
Great.
Glad to hear that's
And,
moving.
Yeah, so we'll, at the next meeting, if we, once this is settled, if it's settled, we'll perhaps invite her.
Right, it was part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, okay. Good. So that's a big step for us, and will allow us to get started on a number of the things that have to be done. I believe I mentioned at a previous meeting that we had a meeting with Berkeley Food and Housing Project, and not Berkeley, I mean the Berkeley Mental Health Commission folks. We have now submitted a request for a grant for supplemental funding, so that will extend some of the opportunities that of things we can do in terms of outreach. And we haven't heard anything on that yet, but they were very encouraging about it.
Where is the grant from? Berkeley?
It's from the Mental Health Services Act.
Oh, okay. State.
It's state money that passes through the local
City of
mental
Berkeley.
health district. So there's an advisory committee. There are 2 Albany members on that advisory committee. And they provide advice to the administration of Berkeley Mental Health on how that money can be spent. So there's a process that has to be gone through.
Okay.
But there is an acknowledgement that Berkeley Mental Health has not provided much in the way of services to Albany. So the response was pretty positive. So that's good. And also in that meeting, we had a conversation about the possibility of a mental health counselor being at the Resource Center perhaps one day a week. And that looks like it might happen. There's some logistical issues that would need to be worked out. But, so those are good steps. And I think we'll now, once we have our director in place, we'll be able to proceed on the timeline. There are obviously lots of things that have to be done before the center can open. We have to do a lot of outreach. We have to develop a resource base so that, there's information that's available. There'll be training of volunteers. There'll be meeting with community stakeholders. And all this will have to go on and get done over the summer so that we can begin hopefully in late August.
Good time.
Any other questions or comments about the Resource Center?
Do you want feedback about some other resources that we might provide?
Sure, but rather than take time to talk about them here, maybe you can provide them to Isabel. She's got a collection of resources.
Yes, if you have a list or if you know of
I
organizations.
just have a thought.
Excuse me?
I have a thought.
Okay.
I have a friend who's a retired lawyer who's very interested in the homeless
Oh,
homeless
okay.
needs, so
Sure.
that may be a good fit
Okay.
for the Resource Center.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else on that?
Oh, I mean, one thing we also might promote at the Resource Center, I know there's like a relatively new Albany group. I think it's sort of like online where people it's like a library for tools and like other like home improvement things like that. and that might be something that we can promote there. Like people kind of borrow each other's like appliances and tools and things, and you can lend them out. And
Sure. Well, any information that anybody has about anything that might be a resource, just send it to Isabel and she'll collect it. Okay, then, moving on to rent review ordinance. Isabel, why don't you take the lead on this?
Sure. So included in your packet, let me get mine. So I sent you information, and I also provided new information that at your station right here. So basically, I sent you the December 5th staff report that included information on the workshop that had been held in November. And it does include some of the information that was gathered at the meeting, pictures of the boards, and a brief summary of what the feedback from the workshop and the online survey. And I also provided at your seat some information on the online survey, so the responses received and how people answered each of the questions. So you also have that. The other piece of information I do have is actually all of the individual responses of the online survey. There were 194. So I printed one copy, so feel free to peruse if you'd like to. But these are basically all of the individual responses.
Thanks, Isabel.
And as far as next step, the RFP has been released. Jeff went to council in March, and the council approved the release of the RFP. So you also have a copy of the RFP that was released. It's on the city website, and submissions are due June 16th, with the hopes of hiring someone by July 15th. And I don't know if we can go through the RFP, or you can, read it on your own. And but it's pretty self-explanatory. So the city is looking for an agency or someone who can assist the city in implementing a rent review board.
can I ask, for this packet with the surveys, if they answered other in any of the questions, are we able to see any of those responses?
It would be in the individual responses, but
Okay.
there's a whole bunch.
Right.
It's
I'm sure.
194
If you're up for a little
responses.
light reading, there's,
Yes.
So I'm wondering if I could just ask a clarifying question for a moment. I think it would probably help the public a lot as well. At this point, I mean, I see on the agenda, we're just reviewing this information, right? What is the commission's role in the rent review board at this
Right,
point in
so
time?
if you look at the RFP, it does mention that the consultant will be making a recommendation to the Social and Economic Justice Commission and the City Council, and on the final form of a rent review program ordinance. So you will be reviewing the ordinance that will be drafted.
So we'll be reviewing it and then making some kind of recommendation
To the city council.
and then it'll
And
go
the City
on to
Council has the final decision.
So in that sense, it has come back to the commission.
Right, yes.
In a certain
yes.
degree, okay.
Yeah, yes. So you will be providing a recommendation to council based on the work done by the consultant.
and that should be a ways from now, because the consultant won't be hired till June.
Well, yes, June 16th is when the submissions are due, and the city hopes
Oh,
to
could
have
it be
somebody on
later than
board
that,
July 15th. And we don't know what kind of timeline the consultants are going to provide. So
Yeah.
based on the work described in the RFP. So until we see the submissions and someone is, or an agency is picked, we don't really know what the timeline is at this point.
It may be good to encourage them sooner than later. So, this is, as we know from the response that we got, it's an urgent issue for a lot of people. And actually, I checked my notes, and the first big hearing that we had, and it ended up at the community center, that was June 7th. So the deadline for submissions, June 16th, so it'll be about a year since we initiated it. But I'm really glad to see that this is out. And any other highlights that you like to mention about this?
But I guess what I can mention is that, agencies who submit, they can submit for all three parts of the RFP, or I think there's a preference to work with only one agency that would provide all three levels of assistance. But agencies can also choose to only apply for one or two of the services that we're requesting.
How does this get disseminated?
Right now, it's on the city website, and also I believe Jeff has a list of agencies that he's gathered that could be interested in this, so he will send that to the mailing list that he has.
Okay.
And it is also available on the website, so if you know of any agencies that you think would be interested, refer them to the website.
Can we see the list that Jeff has? And then we can, that might give us some ideas about.
Right, yeah, I can ask him for the list, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder, is there any kind of a website or publication where organizations like this would look for RFPs?
Now that I think about it, there's actually the county. We can go through the county,
County, yeah.
send that to the county, and they have a listserv.
Yeah, because
they
that
could
seems
send
like a
this
kind of
to.
a narrow distribution.
Yeah, I'll let Jeff know about. I'm sure he knows, but I'll let him know because
Yeah.
there's a listserv through HCD, but there's also a listserv through Everyone Home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because
essentially,
it's not
those two
impossible that there's
listservs.
an organization that nobody's heard of.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
Okay. Anything else on rent review? No? Okay.
I
Yes.
believe there's a member of the public that
Oh,
may want to comment.
I'm sorry. Are you asking for public comment? I am. I am now asking for public comment. Yes.
Hello, I'm Francesco Papalia, and I'm speaking for the Albany Property Rights Advocates. One thing I'd like to ask, if the information that was put out today that's there, if that could be made available in a digital format so we can share it.
Sure.
And that the comments of the others, is that information available in a digital format that could be
Not
seen?
right now, but it can be made available. Yeah.
Because sometimes the other comments, like I made a few, are particularly insightful. So they
We
sometimes.
can find yours in here.
So regarding the having this commission take on this issue, in the last go-round, the property owners felt that they did not get a fair shake, and that the process was skewed towards tenants, and that you didn't ask for the stakeholders who are the landlords to participate in the process. So by the end of it, when we did show up in numbers, there was an acknowledgement of what our concerns were, and we're hoping if you are ending up to deal with this, that we are afforded an ability to provide the valuable input that we have about the real-world situation that's existing out there, because so much of the information that you have is from places like Zillow or Craigslist are really often not are not scientific. They're very sporadic in their access to information. Also, one thing I've noted is that this rent mediation and review is going to be now all units would fall under this. So single-family homes and condominiums. So I feel that you, as a group, have a duty to let all single-family homeowners, and the council as well, that they're going to be subject to this if they're renting their house or condominium, because as you know, the state law, Costa-Hawkins, exempts those entities, single-family homes, from any form of rent control. So those property owners who rent their homes or condominiums may feel that this isn't an issue for them, but this will affect them. So we're hoping you're able to provide more information to everybody that this would affect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you were referring to the staff report that Jeff Bond put together in regards to the coverage of the ordinance, and I don't think that we have a decision made about that yet. This is what he was referring to is the comments that we obtained. There seemed to be the thought that it should include single-family homes, but I don't believe that we've arrived at that decision yet.
Oh, I see, yeah. It's in the RFP.
It's in the, okay, well, I haven't had the opportunity to
Okay.
read the RFP.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, can I go after her?
No, the staff, well, that's what I'm saying, the staff report is not the final, we haven't come to a final conclusion through the staff report.
So I had a few words on this. There was an implication in the comments that we didn't allow certain members of the community to participate in our discussion. The Social and Economic Justice Commission meetings are open to the public. Anyone's welcome to come. And I believe the input we got was pretty evenly balanced. I think at the beginning it was, yes.
So let me interrupt you, Brian.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a useful thing to debate at this point. We've heard a request for involvement of the community, and we will do what we can to involve the community.
Well,
I don't think
that's
we
true,
need to
too.
do anything more than that.
Really, this item is really informational.
Yeah.
It was informational. One of the commissioner requested the information, so we're providing the information. But at this point, there's nothing for the commission to do about it until the consultant comes to you with their recommendation. So,
And another thing that is separate from the comments then is just another clarifying question. And because so much time has passed, the ordinance was written and passed, correct? And it has the detail, the rent review,
No.
it has not
No.
been passed yet.
No,
there's no ordinance that's been written. That's what the RFP is about.
Okay.
The RFP is requesting assistance for the writing of the ordinance.
So the details.
To do some
we're
background
still gonna have
research,
to-
do research on the community, and eventually come to an ordinance and a program for Albany. So,
The issue of single-family homes is not decided yet.
No, it's
correct?
still open.
right.
Okay.
But because it's non-binding, though.
Right. It's not.
Right.
Yeah, this was simply the opinion, so.
Right.
But certainly it will be an issue in the ordinance. And
Sure.
so I think we certainly need to widely publicize any meetings we have related to this.
Right.
Absolutely.
When the
Yeah,
time comes.
Definitely.
And yes, we definitely appreciate the public's comments.
All righty. Anything else on the rent review ordinance? Anyone else have comments? Seeing none, we will move on. The Albany Project Hope, the review of the third quarter reports submitted by Berkeley Food and Housing Project. Any questions or comments about that report? Anyone have anything? I have one question then. In terms of the, find the right place here. In terms of the numbers, I don't seem to be here. In terms of the numbers that are given, there's a, must be in the other packet, there's a number that is desired, and then there's a number that's listed. You have yours handy, can I just glance at that? That'll make it a lot easier. It says performance measure, and then it says target, progress, activity this period, and then year-to-date statistics and comments. I don't know what the target refers to in terms of a time period.
The contract started July 1st.
But are we talking about the target being a year or a?
Yeah, for the duration of the contract, so it's 12 months.
Okay, so the target for number of housing case plans performed would be 17?
Right, for
And
the year.
they've done 8?
That's right.
And the year-to-date statistic, they would be
23.
23? And that, so they're considerably over what
Right.
the target was? Okay. And then new clients housed, they've housed 5 year-to-date, and 10 is the target
Right.
for the year. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Just want to get clear about that.
Sure, sure.
Thank you. Anything else on this? Anyone? Yes.
Hi. I just had a question about, I was hoping it would be in the report, but I don't see it. How many of the people who were housed on the bulb, who were kicked off the bulb by the city, have been housed? I'd like to know, because the city of Albany has put a lot of money, and I'm still seeing people living under the overpass, living random places. People I know are not housed, and I think there should be some accountability since the city took it upon themselves to take their home away. I think we should at least know whether they're being housed by this. So is there any way of, I don't know who these people are they've housed in the last year. They've housed 5 people. Are any of those people that were living at the bulb? Do you know? I was hoping there'd be a follow-up on that because it's an ongoing concern of mine since I have friends who are living out there now unhoused. Thank you.
Thanks.
We had a report on that
Isabel?
last year, right?
Yeah, there was a report provided by BFHP last year on the number of people housed that had been living on the bulb. I can't recall
I believe it
from the
was
top, but
something like 60, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
60.
not 60 were not housed. I want to
60
say
were
it's more like,
served.
yeah, served,
Yeah.
but maybe like 27, I want to say,
Somewhere
were
near the
housed.
neighborhood of 30 were actually housed, yeah. But we'll get those numbers for you.
Yeah, they're actually on the city website. There's a...
They're tracking it? Like, is there a way?
No, they don't track anymore, right? Like, they don't track, like, the people who are housed now are not tracked in that sense. We're not asking them to track people who are, because right now they're helping whoever comes, but they're not asking them if they were on the bulb previously. That's not part of what we're asking them to do.
But we can get that from Robbie.
Which one?
We can ask Robbie that question.
Yeah, she probably has some information, background information on everybody that she helps. Yeah,
Can you do that?
sure.
Great,
Yeah.
and we'll have it in our next meeting for you. Okay. All right. Anything else on Berkeley Food and Housing? Yes.
Francesco Papalia. I worked for 6 months to a year furnishing, getting volunteers to donate furnishings so that when people moved into this housing, they had furnishings. So, but I do know that I've heard that there's been some turnover or success or lack thereof. And so, although the city website may state how many people got housed, I think it would be very valuable for the community to find out at this point in time, what is the status of those people, whether they are still in the housing or not. A lot of money was spent, and just, that's how you learn. I mean, a direction was chosen as to how to help the people. And they were not helped or housed in Albany. They were housed, in my experience, in North Richmond and West Oakland, almost exclusively. A few in, I don't know, anyone in Berkeley or Albany or El Cerrito that I'm aware of. And so I think we deserve to know what's the status of those people at this point. And a follow-up survey of where they are and what kind of, whether they're still in the housing or not. Thank you.
That's very much an overlap with the previous request. So.
Right, but there's a limit as to what BFHP can do, because basically they did provide a pretty thorough presentation last year with all of the numbers and the people who had been exited and everybody where people were. But once they've stopped using the services from BFHP, or whether or they've been exited because they're successfully housed, they don't track them anymore, right?
Right, but we can certainly get the information up to the point that they were tracking.
Yes, and that information was provided, and I'm happy to bring back the PowerPoint.
Why don't you tease that out so we can
When
Well,
did the
if you want
tracking
to.
end? Like, when has the tracking for people living at the bulb or people who are kind of evicted from the bulb, is that like over?
Right, yes, it is over because there's no longer anybody living at the bulb.
Right, when-
So if there's anybody still receiving services from BFHP who had been living at the bulb, then BFHP has information on them. But if they're no longer receiving services from BFHP, then we don't have any
So
information.
people who left the bulb and went somewhere else,
We don't have information on them, no.
And I would just add, this is a very valid concern, but I think a lot of homeless people would be reluctant to be tracked in this way. They'd be suspicious of this kind of, like government intrusion and I Spy and that kind of thing. So, so there are limiting factors on our ability to do this. So.
But the tracking ended this year, did it not?
that's what I was.
Well, the tracking ends once somebody is exited from the program
Right.
or ceases to receive services for one reason or another from BFHP.
So we could conceivably get a disposition up to this year as to what happened to the people who were served, who had been at the bulb.
Right.
That's what I hear people asking for, and that seems feasible.
Well, yeah, and that information was provided
Okay, so
a year ago.
let's just tease it out
Because,
again.
people were asked to move from the bulb 3 years ago now.
Right, I know.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, I know, but let's get what we can get,
Yeah,
okay?
We can.
Great. Yeah, I do remember, that was to a certain extent in the report. I don't know how explicit
yeah, it was a year ago
Yeah.
that they came because the same request was made. So we asked BFHP to come with as much information as they could, and they did. So,
Okay, so let's surface
Yeah.
that again and distribute it.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let's see, we're up to the low-income parcel tax exemption and renter rebate. You were going to provide an update?
Yes. The postcard is in process for being printed. Will be distributed to all Albany households by May 11th. And the application should be on the website soon. And application deadline is June 1st.
Did we get the postcard in another language besides English as well? or
No,
did that
time
not
was
happen?
just
Okay.
too it was
Constraining.
just not enough time. Something we will consider definitely for next year.
Okay. Any other plans in terms of this information? Do you think it might be possible at some point to do perhaps a little talk at the senior center about this?
Once we have the postcards and the application, we will basically put it at the front desk for everybody
Yeah.
to know that it's available. We also can informally make presentation at the dinner program or in some of the classes.
I was
We'll
thinking-
just make it available, because if at this point, because it's such a short turnaround, it's probably better to do presentations spontaneously to groups who are already meeting, rather than try to bring people in, because there's
Yeah.
not enough time to.
Okay.
to-
All right, well,
to
let's think
advertise
about
it.
this for the future.
Yes.
Let's set up an hour meeting at some point where
Sure.
people, and publicize that. Because some people may not feel comfortable proceeding unless they've actually seen the form and had some advice about how to go about it. And, it takes a little information and a little initiative and,
Right. Yeah.
So,
And we do provide form completion assistance at the senior center. So anyone who needs assistance in filling out the form and understanding what the requirements are, we're available to provide that
Right.
assistance.
but that would only be for seniors, and there are other low-income people who are eligible, so.
That's why the community resource center will be.
Yeah,
a
good,
resource,
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, we have our first program.
Yeah.
Yes, Julie? Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't even come for either one of these items tonight. I just got lucky. Or you got lucky. I just had a question about that. So this is not just for seniors, is that what you were asking? It's actually for all low-income people? So I would suggest doing a program at the library instead of at the senior center, because then you would hit everyone, and actually maybe do a program, there's a presentation on all of the kinds of things that that people can apply for, because I know there's more than just this, and a lot of people don't know about them. So, and maybe have people, interpreters, other languages that people could talk to people in those languages. Library staff could help get the word out, and even have some people, volunteers through the library, maybe find volunteers to help people fill out the forms. So I think it could be a really great library program and much more inclusive than just this one exemption. Thank you.
Okay. Let's put that on the agenda for next meeting, so we can do some development.
What date is the postcard going to be sent out? Do we know?
Right now, the date is May 11.
Okay.
It could be a little bit before, a little bit after, but that's the target date,
And what's the date by which people have to apply?
June 1st.
Yeah, it's a short timeline.
Yeah. But the application should be online sooner than when the postcard is
Yeah.
sent.
Yeah. But the idea of doing a piece on all of the kinds of tax exemptions, and I think that's a good idea for us to think about. Wouldn't take much to do. Okay, anything else on item 7.5? Anyone else? Okay. So, new business, promote community-wide inclusivity. We have a report from Brian and Tara, who are the Inclusivity Subcommittee.
So I'll go ahead and give the report, and I'll ask Tara to chime in. As we discussed at the last meeting, since the election in November, the variety of incidents have happened in town that I'm sure everyone's aware of, that kind of make a change in the priorities of the city and of this commission. In the past, housing has been the top issue. Inclusivity is now rising to the top. So Tara and I talked about a few ideas, and the one that came to the top, because we've talked about it before, actually, at the last meeting, and it's been talked about in the city for the last year, is the idea of a proclamation in support of Loving Day. And this is just looks to me like kind of a low-hanging fruit that could be adopted as part of the consent calendar by the city council. And what it is Loving Day was, that Loving were a couple in Virginia that the man was white, I believe, and the woman black. And they, at that time, in 17 states, it was illegal to marry across race, and so they were arrested, took it to Supreme Court, and so this is going to be the 50th anniversary of that, and so if it's agreeable to the commission, I'll read the proclamation, we can send it on to the city council. And then Tara's biggest idea, I think, was promoting bilingual education.
Right.
So I think do you want to say a couple words
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, that's definitely something I've been thinking about, and I've talked to Margie about a little bit separately about ESL classes, like especially for adults, because in Albany we used to have that, and then the program kind of died down, but bringing that back is something that I think is important, as well as what I've mentioned before, like having city literature and like the website, et cetera, available in like other languages, I think is important, especially since I've talked to Albany High School leadership and other people in the community, and a lot of like minority students have voiced their concerns and their concerns of their parents that they don't feel as well represented by the city in like efforts and things like that. And so one thing to focus on also is we have a lot of parent groups, especially of like minority groups, and reaching out to those groups when we talk about doing like events and workshops and things like that as well is important as well.
Okay.
Well, why don't we take these two issues in order? So
Yeah.
why don't we deal with the proclamation first?
Well, there's still a couple items
all
on
right.
the report,
Go ahead.
yes. So then just the last thing is that there was input from one community member, and this wasn't widely, it was just kind of like a straw poll, that the Albany Cross and the lack of affordable housing are contributing factors, but obviously those are not things we're going to deal with right away. And you mentioned last time probably the Cross isn't something we want to get involved in as a commission.
Council is working on that.
Yes,
I
right,
think
exactly.
The council was getting sued on that one.
But the point is that I'm trying to make is these are kind of part of the equation, but they're not something that we want to take on right now. So the idea is, yes, we talk about the Loving Day, and then maybe as maybe as a subsequent item, we. Do you think there's a need to actually read the proclamation, or should we just?
Do you want to hear it read? Or?
For the sake of the
Okay, for the sake of the audience, right? So.
people who are watching us at home.
Yes, and just the historical background is that this was done in El Cerrito 2 years ago, and is a result of kind of a parallel commission over there that's the Human Rights, I think it's Labor and Human Rights Commission in El Cerrito, and they actually had a celebration last year.
They did the Not in Our City campaign as well, if you've seen like the signs in like El Cerrito homes and buildings.
Right, she's referring to the Not in Our Town campaign, which is actually a national campaign. That's a little bit more of an anti-hate, whereas this is kind of a
Pro-love.
and that's why I'm interested in it, because it's not so controversial, and it's not so, we're focusing our positive energy on something. So here it is then. Action requested, approve a proclamation declaring June 12, 2017 as Loving Day in the city of Albany, and authorize the mayor to send letters of support to federal and state elected officials urging the recognition of Loving Day. Background analysis. At the April 2017 meeting of the City's Social and Economic Justice Commission, okay, maybe we can skip this part because I talked about it, but it's just this paragraph. But we determined that promoting Loving Day, would be a good way to. It's like saying not only do we accept people from other races, but it's also we accept them marrying, and marriage inequality, the sort of law against marrying between races is a form of racial inequality, because a white person ought to be able to marry the same set of people as a black person or an Asian person can. Should all be the same. So there's a movement that started in 2004 to recognize this as a holiday. And like I said, as of 1967, this was illegal in 17 states. It was illegal in more states before that. And there's an organization, lovingday.org, if people want to see more about it. So here it is then. Whereas Mildred and Richard Loving were arrested in 1958 for violating Virginia's felony law prohibiting interracial marriage, and whereas the Loving family was convicted of violating the law and given a suspended sentence provided that they did not return to their home in the Commonwealth of Virginia as a couple for 25 years. And whereas the Loving family did not back down, but took their case to the United States Supreme Court and won, overturning their conviction and creating a landmark civil rights victory. And whereas their case, Loving versus Virginia, ended all laws prohibiting interracial marriage nationwide, paving the way for all consenting adults to marry the one they love. And whereas
Not quite, but
Right, I almost said that, and and I will interject that Loving Day has also been taken up by the cause of gay marriage and other forms of extending this further. Whereas annual celebration known as Loving Day is held on June 12th in communities throughout the nation to commemorate and celebrate the anniversary of the Supreme Court decision, and whereas our country, state, region are moving forward in the 20th century as a multiracial and multicultural society. Whereas the city of Albany joins other communities to find a common vision from our interwoven past to build a society free of racism for the benefit of the collective future. Now, therefore, the city of Albany does declare June 12, 2017 as Loving Day in the city of Albany. It invites everyone to recognize this day as a celebration of multiculturalism and to reflect on the Loving family and all the pioneers who have and will continue to fight for the civil rights to love, dated whenever she signs it. Looks like there's a typo here. Peggy McQuaid, Mayor of Albany. So that's the proclamation. And we also talked about the idea of maybe going further and having people in the city sign the declaration, but we can, so I'll open it up to the other commissioners.
so we need a motion to approve, to make this, recommend this proclamation.
But is there any
Don't we
discussion?
want to discuss it first?
Does anyone want to discuss
I'd
it?
like to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we can, let's have a motion and then we'll discuss it. That's the way it's supposed to happen.
A motion to discuss?
No, a motion to adopt, and then we
I
can
think we
discuss.
should discuss first. No, shouldn't we?
Okay,
Not
okay.
according to parliamentary procedure, no, but,
All right.
all right, doesn't really matter.
Okay, let's not fight in front of the other, and it's not public comment time yet. So,
Shortly,
Okay.
okay.
Well, no, I think it's a great idea. I'm wondering if we're planning to have some kind of event go along with it.
So I think that would be an additional step. I mean, the idea now is let's get the proclamation, let's get the city council to sign it, and an event is kind of, if you look at the timing, like today's the 2nd of May, the day is June 12th. So my hope here is that we could get this on the consent calendar, because I don't see anyone really opposing it. I think it could be on the consent calendar, and then from there we could talk about, other things. But this is basically authorizing the city council to do, what you're saying.
Right, yeah, there could be some hesitancy with the city council, with the resolution to make the city a sanctuary city. They thought that they had everything that they needed to do to get it passed, but then it was delayed at least a couple of times.
It was delayed because people wanted additional.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that would
So it
happen with
isn't-
this.
yeah, So there isn't a lot of time to get it through.
But there's also not a lot of controversy.
Yeah, but we
It's
don't- we
not
don't-
complicated
We don't
like
really
that.
know for sure, but
Yeah.
I would hope it would pass.
I think the sanctuary city is a very complex and controversial issue that
And
that
then
people have a
the
lot of
other
concerns.
Thing is how, let's see, you had mentioned a way of distributing information about it?
Again, that's later. That's after we get the proclamation. Yeah.
So what I need is a motion that we recommend this proposal to council.
Okay.
And then we can get input and take a vote. So can I have a motion, please?
Okay, I'll move
Okay,
that we adopt the resolution.
fine. A second?
Second.
Okay, any comments on the motion? I'm supporting the motion. Anyone else at this point? Further comment? Public comment?
I was fortunate enough to actually see the movie that came out recently, and it was a great movie, and it was, I believe, historically accurate with the figures involved, and it was figures actually. It's up there with, if you haven't seen the movie Hidden Figures, about the black women who got the astronauts to the moon landing successfully. So if anyone who finds this historical moment important, I would recommend that you find a way to see the movie online. And I believe there was also a documentary that was also done about it before the movie, which also, and you know, after I saw the movie, one of the great things about Google and my phone is I can immediately pull up stuff, and the documentation that goes behind it and what they went through was as equally inspiring and educational. So I would highly recommend that you see the movie and learn more about what actually happened. Thank you.
We can have a showing
Yeah,
of
I
the
was just
maybe.
gonna say, kind of like a showing maybe.
Maybe one at the high school.
I forgot to mention, it actually did show at the Albany Twins.
Yes.
This is why I came. I didn't understand what this was. I'd never heard of the Loving case, so I was horrified that you were having a Loving Day, because I didn't realize it was somebody's name. So I was coming to object to the name. But I also wanted to say that I really appreciate starting to talk about inclusivity, or as I call it, all-inclusive, because to me, inclusivity implies that there's an in-group and an out-group, and I don't like in-groups and out-groups, so I think an all-inclusivity. And I just spent 3 days, just today was the third day of going to a conference from the Haas Center for a Fair and Inclusive Society. It was a 3-day conference called Othering and Belonging, and heard a zillion amazing people talking about this very topic. So I think it would really, this maybe would be a start, but I would really like to see a push in Albany. It's not that simple to have something that's inclusive, that's all-inclusive. There's a lot of othering that goes on. I mean, you guys are a great example. There are 4 white people sitting right there. So, in fact, well, not to single you out, but a lot of white people in this room, a lot of white people on the city council. So we have a long way to go, and I think having some really honest community conversations about people feeling left out because their English isn't their first language, or a million other reasons that people feel left out. We could have, for instance, there's no rainbow flag at the City Hall. You could have a rainbow flag here easily and immediately change the atmosphere in this building. So there's a lot that could be done, and I would love to see a conversation, and maybe the library, again, could be involved in that, and I would love to be involved as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so are we ready to vote on the motion?
I think so.
Okay, so all in favor of asking council to adopt this proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
I think that's everyone. Okay. So the proclamation will be now referred to the council. Then the next issue was ESL, and I've been trying to think of, Isabel, do you know much about, I know that ESL was, I mean, not ESL, but English for non-native speakers was one of the offerings of the adult school historically.
Right.
But that was dropped at some point. Do you know anything about
Well,
that?
the history that I know of is that the ESL classes were funded by the state, I believe, and the adult school was receiving funding to pay instructors to provide ESL classes. When the Albany Adult School closed, the funding went away, and the Recreation and Community Services Department took over most of the classes. We tried to do ESL, but we couldn't pay the instructors what the adult school paid because we base on our contracts with instructors on a percentage of the registrations received. So the ESL classes were dropped because the instructors were not interested in what the contract we had to offer.
Is there any reason why we couldn't try again to
I
see
think
if there's interest?
The main reason is that ESL classes tend to be very affordable. And for what the instructors wanted to get paid and the percentage, the classes became unaffordable for folks. Yes, I think what would be interesting to find out is where ESL classes are being held now, where people are
Right,
going,
where the
how the instructors are paid. I would do a little bit of research on.
Could you research that, but also,
No, I would prefer if the subcommittee
someone else do it, all right.
did research. That's what would be my
if-
recommendation, is
yeah.
to do research on the history of ESL classes and how other communities are funding their ESL classes, where the funding is coming from, and how potentially.
I don't know how to find out what communities, I mean, other than to
Well, the
Google.
city of Berkeley, I think the Berkeley Adult School provides ESL classes, and I think, I'm not sure, this is because a long time ago, but I think a lot of the funding that used to go to the adult schools, because a lot of the adult school closed, is now going to the city colleges to provide ESL classes. So I think most of the ESL classes are available in Berkeley.
I think that El Cerrito offers ESL through their adult schools, too.
Yeah,
'Cause
if they
I get
still have
their-
an adult school, then potentially the adult school is still receiving the funding to provide ESL classes.
But I've been in San Francisco lately for various different events, and I see this big sign up on the community college windows that says free ESL.
So it's probably because they receive funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
do we?
So perhaps we could pursue some kind of partnership with one or both of those two cities, because Albany is small, and I think it sounds like there's economy of scale issue. Maybe that it's too expensive.
That's something to
for us
find
offer.
out. That's something
Right.
to, for the subcommittee to do more research.
Right.
If that's what the committee is interested in, the commission is interested in pursuing, is I would do more research, provide a thorough report on your findings, and then move from there.
Yeah, and I would just comment, the Loving Day issue is more of a routine thing. It was sort of already pretty much in the cards. This is more of a long-term research
Right.
topic. Maybe it'll take us, 6 months to look into and then provide some kind of recommendation.
Are you willing to take that one on?
I wanted to ask, are we able to find out about like past attendance information, like numbers for how many people were at those classes?
No,
No.
the adult school closed, so
Right. Okay.
The district might have that
perhaps the
information.
district, but
I think it,
Probably have a list of the former instructors, though. Wouldn't those be available?
although these classes are available through the, in Berkeley and through the colleges, it would be really nice if we could have one in Albany.
Yeah.
And maybe it's possible to work out, if the funds were available to educational institutions, maybe we could do something jointly with the district. Maybe you guys could approach the district and
I've
see.
got an idea. Maybe this is something we could offer through our resource center.
Well, we could, where is a different issue. The question is whether they could tap the funding that's available.
Right. It's, yeah.
If they could pull the money, that would be easier. We could still think about offering it and having an appropriate fee attached. I don't know, whether that could be done through the recreation department. You do offer other kinds of things that people pay for. Be a question of testing the market, right, to see if
Right.
there's demand.
Right. I think we would want to figure out, yeah, like do some sort of survey or something to figure out if people would be interested in doing it.
Yeah. So the first thing, so it sounds like what we need to know is where else is this being offered? Can the school district play a role in tapping the existing funding so that it could be free? And if not, can we look at the possibility of testing out a course through the rec department?
And there may be people who would be willing to volunteer to teach it as well.
Yeah.
So that might be an area to look
Okay.
into.
So can we give that to you guys and give you a couple of weeks to, maybe we're going to need a couple of months probably to do all of that.
Couple of years.
And not years, no, somewhere between weeks and months.
Right. I wanted to ask also, just going back to city resources available in other languages, would it be possible somehow to get our city website like translated into the most predominant languages that we have in Albany? Is that feasible at all?
I don't know. I would have to come back to the commission.
We're in the midst of an upgrade
But
of the
we are in the midst of-
website,
yeah.
so I
Right.
don't, yeah.
But I don't think there's plans to fully translate the website in
Right.
any other languages, but something I can,
Right.
In terms of the process,
look into.
I think this is something we would, we'll continue. We're just starting this idea of a subcommittee to promote
Exactly.
inclusivity. And this would be something that in the future, a future meeting, we would recommend to the city council. We kind of pass the ball on to them and say,
Right.
hey, can you look into this?
So-
But it's not something that Isabel can make
right, no, I
happen.
can't, I can't say yes or no to all the suggestions. I think the best thing for the subcommittee is come up with ideas, research them, and then the commission as well can pick, maybe prioritize,
Yeah.
a few, and then you can move forward on them. But it's hard for me to answer
Yeah.
Now, there's
questions on the spot like that
there's
without any
another side of this.
research, or you have to have a plan.
Well, let's first find out what is planned and then go from there, okay? So those are the things you've mentioned so far. It seems to me, though, I mean, and I appreciate these are very concrete suggestions and something is moving and that's great. It seems to me, though, that there is a bigger picture here that we need to get into. I know that Peggy has been thinking about this issue for a while, Peggy McQuaid, and it might be good to have her come and talk with us about this, because I know she was working with a group of people from the community looking at a possible event. I think we need to find a way to outreach to the various communities here.
That's what I was
Identify who they are, what their needs are,
Yeah.
and to meet with them and find out, do they feel included or not included,
Right.
and where and when and how, and that's going to be a big job.
Yeah.
But maybe you can begin to map out what would be involved.
Right. I know just from talking to people that, like, for example, we have like an African American parents group that meets, I think, monthly. And I've heard that we have various groups like that who, as the vibe that I'm getting from them is that they feel sort of like on the outside of other things that are going on. And it is a big job, but it's an important one,
Yes.
I think.
I guess, one thing I would respond to that is, it just kind of has to do with the role of the commission.
Right.
I think, our role is more to study these things and come up with recommendations for the city council to implement ordinances. But when you get into big outreach, to hosting events and stuff, I think we're not really set up to do that kind of thing. I mean, we can certainly interact with other groups, And particularly like Albany Community Action, everyone knows is really big right now. So they're taking that up. And it's important for us to have relationships with them. But I don't think we're going to be organizing a lot of big events.
It's not appropriate necessarily for us to do events, but in terms of talking to groups, I think that's within our purview. Part of what we're talking about here is gathering information. So I guess it would be a question of, and I think we might all play a role in that. I don't see that being just the subcommittee. That would be too much. But perhaps you can begin to map out for us, what are the, and I would talk to Peggy about this. What are the groups that are in existence? How do we reach them? Who are the people that are key?
I think we should ask Peggy to come speak to us at some point, but that's future
I
items.
have in my notes.
Okay, so maybe the next meeting?
I'll ask.
Okay. I think that would be helpful because I know that she's done some work that we don't necessarily want to repeat.
Yeah.
Well, Peggy's on the dog group.
Yeah.
Is that the group that you're talking about?
I'm not talking about any one group. I know that there are a variety of community groups, different ethnic groups, different immigrant groups. Some are more organized than others. But there are populations here that clearly have not been involved, and we need to see how to get them involved. And I think the first thing to do is to talk to them rather than to make assumptions, which is what we often do.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
So if you guys could help us think through how to do this, and we'll bring Peggy next time and see what she can contribute to the conversation. Okay?
Yep.
All right. This is something that is going to take a while. I don't think this is something that's going to be, done in 1, 2, or 3 meetings. This may take a year or two really to begin to make the connections. But it's vital. We don't see the representation of key population groups in our meetings and in our politics, and that's not healthy. So, anything else on the report on inclusivity? Okay. So we're up to future agenda items. I would like to take a look at the work plan with you and see what we're doing on each of the things that are on here. So starting with objective 1.2, promoting housing availability, we are on number 1 is review and evaluate Project Hope, and we're doing that on an ongoing basis. We had our major meeting with them, but we'll be looking at their reports quarterly. Bless you. And then progress on the housing element, reviewing that with the community development staff once per year. Isabel, do you have any thoughts about when would be good to schedule that?
No, but I can discuss it with Jeff and.
See when he'd have the time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Promoting health and wellness, the soda tax. Do you have any idea of how this is going to proceed?
At yesterday's meeting, the city manager mentioned that the workshop to receive community input on the use of soda tax funding would be in late fall.
Yeah.
Late fall of 2017.
Right. Also, next meeting, I believe, I'm going to have a representative from that community group that's sort of been meeting semi-regularly to talk about those issues. They plan on going to that late fall meeting and giving recommendations to council. So we can hear a little bit about what community members and stakeholders are thinking.
Okay, so that'll be a presentation for the next
Yeah.
meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so we get that on the agenda. But in addition to the community meeting, it's not clear to me what our role is and how it configures with this community effort. Are we?
Well, if you want to make a specific recommendation on the use of the funding as a commission.
I understand, but at what point? And
In the
And
fall, at
is
the community meeting.
Is the community meeting information going to come to us or go to the council? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll get those
Yeah,
details.
would you
as we-
clarify
yes,
what the process is?
As we get
'Cause-
closer.
Yeah. Because it isn't clear to me where they're expecting us to step in, and there already is a process underway, so,
Right.
yeah.
But your process can be different than the community group's process.
Yes.
Right.
So I think what council wants is a recommendation from the commission. And it says here where the matter will be discussed. So either at the council meeting or at the community workshop. So we'll get more clarification as we go.
Okay.
And you know that Margie is working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when Margie's here at the next meeting, we can talk more about it. I think we probably want to find out what other communities are doing with the money and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, now we're up to Strategic Plan Goal 2, engage our diverse community, provide input on outreach efforts regarding information on low income. We've talked about that, but that's on the agenda. The Resource Center is on the agenda. Inclusivity, we have a subcommittee working on that, so those are all in motion. And you guys will signal us when you're ready to make another report. And then feedback on draft policy for low rent income exemptions. That wouldn't really be in place until we have something to talk about in terms of a measure or a franchise. So those are the things that are on the work plan. Is there anything else that anybody wants to mention in terms of this coming meeting or future agendas? No?
You also mentioned at the beginning of the meeting to monitor state legislation.
Yeah, we probably should have, if there's time, we can have a conversation about that at the next meeting, or if not, the following meeting. And again, be helpful to get a little bit more clarification. Mr. Moss sort of tossed that out. I don't know how serious he was about it. And I imagine that staff in the city do that fairly routinely, don't they?
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you must look at what's going on at the state legislature and how
Yes.
it's going to impact Albany, so. Okay, anything else anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn? In which case I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, and next meeting will be
June 6th.
June
June 6th.
6th.
June 6th.
And just a reminder that the July meeting is on the third Tuesday due to the
Right.
holiday.
And
instead of
there'll be no meeting in August.
and no meeting in August, right?
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.